back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for all right, and
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I am your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and as always, it's great to have you guys here on this, I forgot what day it is, Wednesday. And we're going to go through a lot of stuff today on the show today. But before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, the link is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. Yeah, I don't know why I just had that brain fart there. But anyways, so we have a lot to talk about on the show today. We'll start off by going through the latest news and headlines because there was some injury news and other stuff that I wanted to talk about on the show today to start it off. And then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the power rankings, both in the NFL and in college. So we'll do that. In the third part of the show, we'll talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat. Because obviously Frank Reich, the head coach of the Panthers, he was fired yesterday. So we'll cover some other coaches that, could be, on their way to getting let go as well. And then something that I haven't done in a while, we'll look at the current stat leaders. We'll actually do that in college, for college as well. So that's the rundown for the show today. So let's get right into the first part of the show, which is talking about the latest news and headlines. So obviously yesterday I did briefly mention it, and we'll talk about it in the third part of the show as well. The fact that the Panthers let go of head coach Frank Reich, and he actually is the first head coach ever to be fired in back-to-back seasons. That has never happened before. And on top of that, he didn't make it through the full season. With the Colts last year, they replaced him with Jeff Saturday. And then this year, the Panthers bring him in, and he doesn't make it through the whole season either. And one of the things that, is really, really concerning, well, not concerning, but like, one of the things that, makes you, pause is the fact that, he wanted C.J. Stroud, supposedly. And the Panthers elected to take Bryce Young instead. And the way these two guys have been performing, it's not comparable. Now, the funny thing is, the Panthers' only win this season came against the Texans. But it's not good, and a lot of people are not putting the blame on Frank Reich. This goes to, falls to the feet of David Tepper, and how this roster has been built. Because this was a team that, listen, the NFC South is a very bad division this year. But the Panthers were competitive in it last year. They could have won it. They lost that game against the Bucs where they were winning. And they could have maybe, snuck into the playoffs as the NFC South winner. And that wasn't the case. But what they've done the last couple of seasons, they let go. They not let go, but they traded Christian McCaffrey. They traded DJ Moore, and they replaced these guys with Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen, who has had a nice year, but Miles Sanders has been a huge disappointment for the Panthers this year. And Bryce Young just has not looked good. So I think if you keep DJ Moore and you keep Christian McCaffrey, I mean that definitely would help Bryce Young, but. To replace them with Miles Sanders and Adam Thielen, that's just not going to do it. But I mean, for me, in the beginning of the year, I thought like, okay, like you at least like brought some guys in, some veterans in that can help the rookie quarterback. But that just really has not that hasn't led to really anything other than just one win. And obviously, the Panthers moved up to get the number 1 overall pick, and they had to trade DJ Moore to do so. But yeah, they have not gotten out what they hoped for in year 1 with Bryce Young. So, we'll see what happens moving forward. But that was just one thing that came out of yesterday is them getting rid of Frank Reich. So some other news as well. Jonathan Taylor actually is going to be getting surgery. So, talking about the Colts, they right now occupy that last wild card spot in the AFC. And, the news came out yesterday that Jonathan Taylor is going to be getting surgery, which kind of came out of nowhere. The Colts obviously coming off of that win against the Bucs to improve their record. So he's going to be getting surgery on his thumb, and he's hoping to return in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It says. I'm looking at a sleeper. It's just it's crazy how that ended up happening because he was playing really well. And now that's a huge hit for the Colts offense. Now Zach Moss steps right back into the lead running back role, which he was running the ball effectively when Jonathan Taylor missed the first I think 4 games of the season. So at least you could go back to him, and your running game is still going to be good. Now obviously it's going to take a step back because Jonathan Taylor is one of the best running backs in the NFL. No disrespect to Zach Moss, but that's just a fact. And Zach Moss was actually one of the top rushers in the NFL before Jonathan Taylor came back. So, it's just unfortunate that had to happen. But like it says, it's supposed to be 2 to 3 weeks. Hopefully he's back and the Colts, can still, go at it for the playoffs because they still got a shot. I mean, they right now they occupy that last wild card spot. I don't know if they're going to keep it, even with Jonathan Taylor. I don't know if they were going to keep the spot, but credit to them. I mean, I think they definitely going to be a good team next year, and I keep saying that. And then some other news regarding the Vikings. So they are activating Justin Jefferson. Now they're going to be in their bye this week, but I think that's really important to get him back, especially with how the game went on Monday. You're going to want to get your best player back, and he's definitely going to help out that offense because they really need it right now because they've lost their last 2 games. You would think maybe if he did play on Monday, they could have won that game. I just couldn't believe how bad Josh Dobbs played. But, I mean, credit to the Bears defense, But, yeah, that game was rough. But he's going to be back after the bye week, and we'll see, how him and Josh Dobbs build a connection. But I just thought it was interesting how the Vikings are going to evaluate Josh Dobbs over the bye week. I just find that very strange because I don't know. I just feel like he's who you should ride with moving forward. Although, yeah, I mean, he's turned the ball over a lot the last 2 games. I mean, he had a couple of turnovers in the Broncos game too. But, I feel like with the bye week and you're getting Jefferson back, I feel like they're going to get it right. And I still look at them as the team that, of the teams in the NFC, fighting for those wild card spots. I think they still get in. The running game is still an issue. They're still not running the football great. And I don't think that's really going to turn around. But you get Jefferson back to go along with Addison, with Hawkinson, KJ Osborne. I mean, I think they should be okay. But, that remains to be seen. So, but it's going to be nice to get Justin Jefferson back because obviously, when he's healthy, he's one of the best receivers in football, if not the best receiver in football. And it's going to be nice to see him back on the field. So the last thing I wanted to talk about was actually a player that retired, a player that I wasn't a fan of when I was younger, because as a Giant fan growing up, and that is obviously Deshaun Jackson announcing his retirement from the game today. And I just wanted to pull up his stats, if I can get them up. So he announced his retirement after 15 seasons in the NFL, and these are his career stats. Pulled them up from ProFootballReference.com. So in 183 games, he had 641 receptions, 11,000 yards receiving, over 11,000 yards receiving, and he had 58 touchdowns. 3-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl champ, and yeah, he was a guy that tormented me as a young Giant fan. He used to be one. He was one of the best deep ball threats in the NFL at one point. Injuries kind of hurt him towards the end of his career, but you go back to when he ran back the punt return in 2010. Matt Dodge, not kicking the ball out of bounds. The Eagles ended up winning the division that year. And, if the Giants win that game, then the Giants had like a big lead in that game and they blew it. So that was not always fun. But, anytime he was on the field, I just did not like him. He was just very, there was that in 2011, he threw the ball at one of the coaches on the Giants. I think it was something like that. It was just he did a weird celebration on the sideline. I really just did not like his attitude when he was with the Eagles. But he was a very good player, So if he was a bad player, then it's what are you doing? But he backed it up. And I do remember, because I was helping my dad, put up Christmas decorations outside, and I remember that night my mom was just so mad over the Giants losing that game. I'm pretty sure we heard her screaming when Deshaun Jackson ran back the punt return, and and then he went to a bunch of teams after that. He was on Washington, he was on Tampa Bay, he was on the Ravens, the Raiders. He was on a bunch of teams. Towards the end of his career, but that's just another player from my childhood that's walking away from the game. And he was a good player, and just again another player walking away from the game. But yeah, that was just a thing that came out. I saw right before I came on, so I wanted to touch upon that. So but yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all the headlines I kind of wanted to talk about. Obviously, we got the bowl games coming up. Friday into the weekend. In college football. You got Oregon and Washington going at it on Friday. Of course, you got Georgia and Alabama. So some big games this weekend. As the college football season is going to wind down, because now it's just bowl games. So but yeah, so that's basically it with the first topic of the show. So when we come back from our first break of the show, we'll look into the power rankings that were released this week. We'll look at the NFL side of things and also the college football side of things as well. So that's what we'll do. And then obviously, like I said, the third part of the show will talk about head coaches that are on the hot seat, and then we'll get into stat leaders. So that is what we'll do when we come back from our first break. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about the power rankings that were released this week, and I'll give you my thoughts on that. I know I spent a lot of time trying to go through each team, but the segment ends up going so fast that I end up having to like speed through like the remaining like 5 or 6 teams. So I'm gonna try not to do that today. So the Panthers, they're at 32, no surprise there. 1-10 on the season. The Patriots 31 are at 31. I mean, there's no surprise there because of how they've played this year, but it's just a shocker that they're 2-9. Like you just would never have expected that. And they're working their way to getting maybe the number 1 overall pick, and if not that, they're gonna have a top 2 pick in the draft. And we'll see what they do with that pick. Cardinals are at 30. They're 2-10. Kyler's played, decent since he's come back. I know they just got blown out by the Rams. The Rams always seem to kill them every time they play them. They're 2-10. They're at 30. The Commanders dropped down 3 spots. They're at 29, and they got absolutely destroyed on Thanksgiving. And like I said, if the game would have ended after 3 quarters, 20-10, I'd take it. But Cowboys had to, drop 25 in the fourth quarter. To cover the spread and, just embarrass me on Thanksgiving because my picks were just terrible on Thanksgiving. Then at 28, the Giants, they moved up a spot, 4-8. And, people here are saying, hey, if they string together a couple games, they're right back in it because of how weak the NFC is. Stop, please. All right, just stop trying to give people hope. It's not happening. It's not. And I'm a Giant fan. It's not happening. It's not happening. I mean, you can see my comforter on my bed is well, you can't really see it, but you can see the colors. It's Giant colors. It's a Giant comforter. It's not happening. The Jets are at 27. They're really falling apart. Like defensively too. Like they just everything is just falling apart. Now they play the Falcons this weekend. We'll see what happens with that, but yeah, it's not looking good in Jetland right now. And obviously, the Hail Mary, returned for a touchdown on Black Friday. The Jets just don't get lucky around the holidays. The Titans are at 26. I mean, they got the win against the Panthers, but like I said, this week, if they played really anybody else, they probably would have lost. Will Levis, after his debut, he hasn't really been great. But Titans picked up a win. Bears moved up 3 spots. They're at 4-8. I mean, Justin Fields, he's been okay the last couple of games. I mean, he did have 2 turnovers on Monday. They're lucky that it didn't cost them. But right now, he just does not look like he doesn't look like the guy for the Bears. But that could all change. He's still got some time to prove himself. We still got 6 games left. So the Bucs are down to 24. I mean, it really just hurts me because I wanted to see this team win the division, but it doesn't look like that at the moment. There's still a game back, but I don't see it happening right now. Raiders at 23. They beat the Jets and the Giants, and everyone's like, "Oh, the Raiders, they look good." But now they've lost their last 2 games. They're back. It's back to reality. And the crazy part is they were up 14-0 against the Chiefs, and you're like, "Oh, okay, here we go." And then they just fell apart. Rams, they've jumped up a couple spots, 5-6. They're kind of back in the conversation for maybe that 3rd wild card spot. They got a tough game against the Browns, although the Browns offense, we don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be because DTR got knocked out of the game against Denver. PJ Walker really didn't do much. So the Rams can win that game, get themselves back to 500. So Kyron Williams had a big game against the Cardinals. So it's great that he's back. And let's try to get Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp back into the offense because, they didn't do anything on Sunday. It was Tyler Higbee and Kyron Williams. That was it. Chargers, they're 4-7. I'd probably put the Rams ahead of the Chargers right now. The offense really got shut down against the Ravens defense. Brandon Staley definitely on his way out at the end of the season. I think it's safe to say that. Bengals, they're at 20. They've lost 2 in a row now to 2 divisional opponents. They haven't won a divisional game this year. But yeah, they're going to continue to plummet. with Joe Burrow being out, and it's just unfortunate that had to happen. Falcons jumped up 4 spots to 19. I mean, I still don't look at them as a good team. The quarterback, I mean, the roster is good. The quarterback position is what's going to hold this team back. And, we'll see what they do in the offseason, how they're going to change that. Because, I mean, you got two good running backs. You got good young receivers. Kyle Pitts, obviously people have been waiting for him to just, pop off, but it just hasn't happened. And I think with better quarterback play, you'll see guys like him and Drake London, play better. But right now with Desmond Ridder, it's not going to happen. But hey, they lead the NFC South. So Packers jumped up 4 spots, 5-6. Jordan Love has looked a lot better these last couple of weeks. And now they got the Chiefs on Sunday night in Lambeau, which I cannot wait for. That's going to be a lot of fun, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, the Packers, they find themselves back in the conversation, when it comes to the playoffs, but especially with the Vikings dropping 2 straight. Saints at 17. So it's weird. They got the Saints ahead of the Falcons. But the Falcons right now have the edge, for the division. I would put the Falcons ahead of the Saints. The Saints right now just I don't know what's up with them, really. Derek Carr's turning the ball over. I mean, they're turning the ball over as a team. I mean, Taysom Hill, they're driving and Taysom Hill fumbles. That was a momentum changer. I mean, they scored there. Who knows what happens in that game. But, I mean, the Saints just, I mean, they're 5-6. They still got a chance at the division, but they're just, I don't look at them as a good team right now. I mean, nobody in the NFC South really is that good of a team. But Vikings at 16, they've dropped 2 straight. And, like I talked about them. Justin Jefferson's coming back. They're evaluating Josh Dobbs during the bye. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, it's not looking good right now for the Vikings at the moment. They got the Broncos at 15 behind the Seahawks, the Colts, the Bills. Yeah, I mean, I put the Broncos up higher. I'd put them ahead of the Seahawks right now. The Seahawks haven't been playing great. The Broncos right now have won 5 in a row. They should be ahead of them. I think they should be ahead of the Colts. I think they're better than the Colts. I mean, they beat the Bills, so I think you put them ahead of the Bills right now. And then I think I think the Broncos should be at 12. Texans right now are at 11. Right now, I think you have the Texans ahead of the Broncos. Now they're going to play each other this weekend, so we'll see how that game goes. Texans obviously lost that tough game to the Jags. But I think that, that game is going to determine, who's going to be, ahead of each other in the power rankings for next week because they're going head-to-head. So you got the Browns at 10. The quarterback play is a concern right now. The Browns, I'm not going to say they're going to fall apart, but they're definitely going to regress if the quarterback play is going to continue to be the way it's been. We'll see, if DTR comes back this week, but if it's PJ Walker, it's not good for the Browns. And then you got the Steelers at 9. Give them credit. I mean, they win ugly, but they get wins. Pat Freiermuth was their leading receiver on Sunday. It's great to have him back. Kenny Pickett was okay. But the Steelers right now are 7-4. And they just keep winning. So you got the Lions at 8. I'm fine with that. I mean, they haven't been playing great the last couple of weeks. They got the Jags at 7. I'm okay with that. I'd put the Dolphins ahead of them. I'd put the Cowboys ahead of them, the Chiefs, the Niners. Yeah, I put all these teams ahead of Jacksonville right now. The Dolphins, they still got to try to beat a good team. The Cowboys, I mean, yeah, they're a top 5 team, obviously. I would leave them at 5. Chiefs at 4, Niners 3, Ravens 2, Eagles 1. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. Maybe you put the Niners at 2. I mean, whoever wins this game on Sunday, that's going to put whoever in that's going to put someone. The one spot could change depending on, if the Eagles lose to the Niners. Because that is a humongous game in the NFC on Sunday. I cannot wait for that game. We're going to see Brock Purdy play a full game, hopefully. Nobody gets hurt. Let's see how these teams really stack up against each other when the Niners actually have a quarterback. The Chiefs, they got the comeback win against the Raiders. The offense looked better. They got off to a rough start when it was 14-0, and you're like, oh no, here we go again. But nope, the Chiefs got it going. The Ravens, they won ugly on Sunday against the Chargers. I mean, if it wasn't for the Zay Flowers touchdown at the end, they would have won by 3. But of course, that didn't happen. The Ravens, I mean, listen, they've been winning ugly too, but the Ravens are one of the best teams in the NFL. Play really good defense. The offense is still kind of a work in progress, but, Zay Flowers has been playing well for them. Him and Lamar have a good connection. The key is, as long as Lamar Jackson stays healthy, this team is going to go a long way. Can go a long way. And right now, it's between them and the Chiefs as the top 2 teams in the AFC. So those are the power rankings in the NFL. So we'll go through the college rankings actually really quickly here. But let me know what you guys think about the NFL power rankings. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I think the Broncos definitely should be higher. So with college now, so we'll go through the 25. So you got Kansas State at 25. You got the Liberty. You got the Liberty. Like I'm talking about the women's basketball, the WNBA team. Liberty at 24. Clemson at 23. Tulane at 22. Tennessee 21. These are the rankings off of CBS. Tennessee at 21. Oregon State at 20. NC State 19. Oklahoma State 18. Notre Dame 17. Iowa 16. Arizona 15. Louisville 14. LSU 13. Oklahoma 12. Ole Miss 11, Penn State 10, Missouri 9, Alabama 8, Texas 7, Ohio State 6, Oregon 5, Florida State 4, Washington 3, Michigan 2, and Georgia at 1. And these teams, a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other this weekend. So you got Oregon, Washington, the Pac-12 championship game on Friday. Saturday, you got Alabama and Georgia. You got Florida State and Louisville. Iowa and Michigan. That'll be at night. The Alabama-Georgia game, that's 4 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams. You also have Texas and Oklahoma State as well, Big 12 championship game. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other. So big weekend. Both in college and in the NFL. But those are the power rankings for both college and the NFL. And when we come back from our second break of the show, we'll talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat in the NFL. But before I do that, I just want to remind you guys, we'll get the Deshaun Jackson stuff out of the way for this. But I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate. Once again, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we get back from our second break of the show, we will talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat as we get closer to the end of the regular season. And obviously, there will be changes with a lot of teams. There's going to be a decent amount of head coaching spots that open up with certain teams. And, obviously when that happens, we'll talk about it. But we'll talk about the coaches right now that look like they might be on their way out. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now talk about the head coaches that are on the hot seat in the NFL. So there is a decent amount of them that could definitely be on their way out at the end of the year. So we'll kind of go through it right now. So obviously, like you look at some of the teams in the NFC, like you got the Bears, Matt Eberflus. He's a guy that I could definitely see being let go at the end of the year. Although, listen, the Bears, last couple of weeks, they have been playing better. Their defense has been playing better. I mean, the Montez Sweat trade has really paid off so far. I mean, he was all over the place on Monday against the Vikings. So, maybe if the Bears play a lot better and they, win a couple more games, maybe he sticks around. Right now they're 4-8, and I don't really see. I think you need to get an offensive coach. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But it's possible that he's on his way out. Obviously, you got Brandon Staley too, which we've talked about a bunch of times, and just the Chargers and how they performed this year. A lot of close games they have lost this year, and it just seems like that happens all the time. Really his downfall, listen, I loved his aggressive play calling, his first year, so I think some of my friends did as well, but it just got to be a little too much. Because you go back to, I think it was week 2 against Kansas City in 2021, and they went for it on 4th and 7 a bunch of times, and they converted it. And you're like, wow, this is amazing. And you got the quarterback to do it, obviously, with Justin Herbert. But it just got to a point where it was like, okay, maybe it's a little too much. Maybe you should take the points. And it definitely cost them in a lot of games. And last year, of course, you had the collapse against the Jaguars, which, again, I'll be honest, I wasn't really that excited about it. Because I was like, we've seen this, so many times. It just, and it's sad to say. Listen, credit to Jacksonville for coming back, but I was like, yeah, I've seen this before. I'm not. It doesn't really impress me that much. It's still great, but I don't know. I was kind of just like, listen, I saw the Patriots do it in the Super Bowl. I'm not. I've seen it before, but I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at it the wrong way, but again, it shows you how bad the coaching job that Brandon Staley did in the game. It doesn't just fall at his feet; it falls at the players too. But that was a disaster. But yeah, he's going to be on his way out. I think he should be gone after this year. Maybe they promote Kellen Moore to be the head coach. But they got to. He's a defensive guy, Brandon Staley, and that defense is not good. Now, it did play better on Sunday against the Ravens, and the offense was the problem on Sunday, believe it or not. But yeah, he's another one that should be gone. You also look at Todd Bowles for the Buccaneers. They're 4-7 right now. And listen, Baker hasn't played bad this year. I think he's been decent for him. But, people point to the defenses. Listen, you gave up a lot of yards to C.J. Stroud when they came back against them. You really couldn't stop the Colts on Sunday. Todd Bowles is another one that I think he's on his way out too. Because, again, another defensive guy. That's that's your strength. And the defense has not been great this year, at least recently. They've had good games, but like I said, against the Colts on Sunday, especially against the Texans, against C.J. Stroud, they did not play up to par. So right now they're 4-7. They could still win the division. It's possible, but I think he's another head coach that's definitely going to be on his way out as well. You got Ron Rivera in Washington. Again, that's another situation where they could promote Bieniemy to being the head coach. Maybe that's his way of getting a head coaching job. because, he was brought in to be the offensive coordinator of Washington to help out, with the development of Sam Howell. And listen, Sam Howell at times has looked really good. Now, was not good on Thanksgiving. Did throw for over 300 yards, but no touchdowns. Well, he had a rushing touchdown, but no passing touchdowns on Sunday. I think they do have something in Sam Howell. And, Ron Rivera just, he hasn't been great last couple of years. So I think Washington's got to go in a different direction as well. It's going to be interesting to see what the Raiders do. Obviously, they already, let go of Josh McDaniels. But, is Antonio Pierce going to be the guy? I don't know. It's going to be interesting. One of the coaches, now, it's probably not going to happen because, well, I think it's, when I was watching, I think the Michael Kay show, they said that, they're all going to be back. And that's the Jets. So Robert Saleh, Nathaniel Hackett, Joe Douglas, they'll all be back next year. I think that's what I heard from yesterday. I don't think Robert Saleh is a good coach. I don't. I thought Brian Dable was a better head coach. Now, the Giants actually have been playing better as of late, so at least that reflects well on Dable. But for me, I'm still back to square one with him, especially with how the season started off for the Giants. But when it comes to Robert Saleh, I don't look at him as a good head coach. I don't. I look at him, as a lot of people do, as a very good defensive-minded head coach. Well, defensive-minded coach, so a good defensive coordinator. But when it comes to the offense, the offense is a disaster. And, I think they are going to give him another year. But, when it comes to the offense, what does he know about developing a quarterback? What does he know about, scheming, putting together an offense? He really doesn't. Nathaniel Hackett's not doing a great job either. If Rodgers was playing, it would the offense would look much better. But it's not good. It's not good. And, he's got a losing record as a head coach. This season is spiraling out of control. And yeah, he's going to come back one more year with Rodgers, and we'll see how they do. But I don't know. I feel like you'd have to go in a different direction. Or at least I think you'd get rid of Hackett, but they're not going to do that because that's Rodgers' guy. So, I think if Aaron Rodgers wasn't there and he wasn't planning on coming back, I think, all those guys are going to be gone. So they're going to have to do it next year, and you got to hope that Rodgers doesn't get hurt. But you got to go and surround him with, you got to build a stone wall for him, because that offensive line right now is currently constructed he would have got hurt again. He would have got hurt anyways, which I don't like to think about, but it's true. Also, another head coach within that division. Well, actually, two head coaches in that division. If you really think about it, the only team that at the moment, in terms of his personality, there's a little bit of a question mark maybe with the Dolphins and Mike McDaniel, but you could have three new head coaches. I just said they're all coming back, but there's three question marks, with the other three teams in the AFC East outside of the Dolphins. The Jets, obviously, they're all coming back, but again, they might not be. Robert Saleh might not be the long-term answer. He might just be here till Rodgers, calls it quits. But you also have Belichick, who could be gone, most likely. But now people are saying, well, if the Patriots get the top pick, maybe he stays. Maybe they keep him around. So we'll have to wait and see. But then you got the Bills with Sean McDermott. And I think if the Bills miss the playoffs, I think you got to make the change there. Because this team, went from the championship game to the divisional round, although it was, they very easily could have made it to the championship game if it wasn't for, them letting Patrick Mahomes get into field goal range with 13 seconds left in the game. Then you got bounced out at home in the divisional round by the Bengals, where you just really were not that competitive in the game. And now you might miss the playoffs. I think Sean McDermott, he's another guy that, especially if the Bills miss the playoffs, he's going to be gone. I think he should be. And you see the last couple of weeks, the Bills with, their new offensive coordinator, the offense has looked a lot better. And, Josh Allen was running the football. And again, you want to balance it. You don't want to overdo it with Josh Allen. You want him to run the football, obviously, but you don't want him to run it too much where he gets hurt. Because, everybody compares him to Cam Newton. Josh Allen has a better arm than Cam Newton, but, that wear and tear is eventually going to kick in, and, you're not going to be the same player. And, for me, I want to see Josh Allen play for as long as he can because he's a great player when he's right. It's just he has a turnover problem. And that was something that, hurt the Bills on Sunday. That put the Eagles ahead. Obviously, the Bills went down the field and, scored a touchdown to go ahead. But then, the Eagles got into Jake Elliott's field goal range to tie the game in that monsoon. And they lost the game in overtime. I still can't believe Josh Allen is 0-6 in overtime games. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, if the Bills don't turn it around, Sean McDermott, he's another guy that, should be gone. Also, when you look at the NFC South, Arthur Smith, I think Dennis Allen should be gone after this year for the Saints. The Saints just really have not been that good of a team since he's kind of taken over for Sean Payton. I think the Saints need to get somebody else. I'm very strong on that opinion. I think they need somebody else. Arthur Smith, I mean, you get a better quarterback in there. Maybe the team is better. It's weird how, well, the team definitely will be better if they get a better quarterback. I just think it's weird how, he uses his players. Like the Bijan Robinson stuff, throughout the season, it's been very, odd. I don't know. But I think, you get a better quarterback in there to work that system. And I think, Falcons could be a decent team. I mean, they got, they're 5-6, so it's not like they've, and they're leading the division. But you don't look at them as a great team. They have the roster. They need a quarterback. That's the bottom line. Mike Vrabel, I don't think, I think he's probably fine, in Tennessee. I think that's it. I think I got most of them. I'm trying to think. No, I think that's pretty much it. I don't think anybody else. I don't think anybody in the AFC North is going. No, nobody in the AFC North is going anywhere. I mean, you might see Mike Tomlin win Coach of the Year or something. And give Stefanski credit too with, what's been going on at the quarterback position. With the Browns, I don't really. I think that's really it. I don't think there's anybody else that I could think of. No, I think pretty much everybody is. That was pretty much everybody that could be gone after this year. So yeah, that's pretty much it with this topic, this segment. So with that, we will take our final break of the show, and then when we come back, we will go through the stat leaders. We'll do that for both the NFL and for college as well. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we will go through the stat leaders in both the NFL and in college football as well. Something I haven't done in a while. Something I would do like every single week, but I kind of stopped doing it because nothing really was changing. It was kind of just like the same, players were at the top like every single week. So I think that's kind of why I stopped doing it. But things have changed somewhat since then. I can't even remember the last time. I'd have to go look back and see. But so we'll start in the NFL. So we'll look at passing yards. So right now, Sam Howell for the I almost said the Washington football team, the Washington Commanders. He leads the NFL in passing yards with 3,339 passing yards. Then you have C.J. Stroud with 3,266 passing yards. Josh Allen, 3,214 passing yards. Tua Tagovailoa, 3,177 passing yards, and then Jared Goff, 3,075 passing yards. Other than Washington, all those teams are in contention for the playoffs. Obviously, Miami and Detroit are leading their divisions. Buffalo and the Texans are on the outside looking in, trying to get themselves into a playoff spot. Texans are in a better spot than the Bills at the moment. The Bills have a very tough schedule coming up. But yeah, I mean, Sam Howell, he's thrown for a lot of yards this year. I think Washington does have something with him. But, we'll see what happens moving forward, especially like I just talked about in the last segment. I mean, Ron Rivera, he's on his way out. So, we'll see what the Commanders do at the end of the year and who the new head coach is going to be. I say they appoint or promote Bieniemy to being the head coach, but that's just me. Then you go to passer rating. Brock Purdy is in first with that. He's got a 112.3 passer rating. Kirk Cousins at number 2, 103.8. I mean, it's, again, unfortunate because he was having a really good year. And, actually he came out and said, like, he, didn't know was this the last time that he was going to play football when he got hurt. But he's in a better place with what he said afterwards. He's like, he said he's in a better place now. He feels like that that's not the case. That was weird how I worded that. But, yeah, he's going to try to come back next year. So hopefully he does, and the Vikings bring him back. Because, I mean, the Vikings really turned it around. And, him getting hurt, that really was unfortunate for them. We also got Tua, who's, a 10th behind him. He has a 103.7 passer rating. Tua's been good, although, wasn't great on Black Friday. He had the 2 picks and the fumble. But he's been solid for the Dolphins this year. And I don't know how far they're going to go. I don't think they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, but you never know. With the playmakers they have on offense, you never know. But give him credit. He's been good this year. Russell Wilson, people were talking about how, even with the stats, they were like, yeah, Russell Wilson's really just not playing good. But he has. I mean, the touchdown to interception ratio is good. He's got a 103.4 passer rate. Yeah, top 5 in passer rating. I mean, that's good. He's been playing better this year as opposed to last year. And the Broncos right now, they're another team that's trying to make a playoff push here. C.J. Stroud, top 5 as well. He's got a 100.8. That's your offensive rookie of the year right there, C.J. Stroud. Then you look at rushing yards. I mean, there's no surprise here. Who's at the top? Christian McCaffrey, 939 rushing yards. Leads the NFL. Then you got Raheem Mostert, who's got 785 rushing yards. DeAndre Swift has 770. Derrick Henry has 739. And Zach Moss is still top 5. I thought he'd be out of the top 5. He's got 672 rushing yards. And now, I mean, that's going to go up now with Jonathan Taylor, missing the next couple of games at least, with him having to, miss time with the thumb injury. Yeah, I mean, he's been a surprise this year, definitely. Because with the Bills, he was like their number 3 back. Like he really just he really didn't do anything with the Bills. Then he went to the Colts, and he just, became a top 5 runner. And, in terms of rushing yards. But that just goes to show you how there's really not a lot of, elite running backs this year. I mean, because you got Zach Moss. I mean, I don't want to disrespect Zach Moss, but yeah, I mean, you got Raheem Mostert, who's 31 years old. I mean, and he has an injury history, but he's been really good for the Dolphins. Obviously you got Derrick Henry on here, but yeah, there's not a lot of elite running backs, if you really think about it. Guys coming off of injuries from the previous year, like Tony Pollard, for example. He's starting to play better. But, yeah, I mean, and some teams, they have more than one running back that they rely on. And obviously some guys are banged up. Like Aaron Jones really hasn't played that much this year for the Packers. Saquon's been out. He's missed time. But, yeah, it's interesting, the running back position. Because obviously, and also Nick Chubb, getting hurt earlier in the season as well. It's a weird year for running backs, especially with them, dealing with all the contract stuff in the off season, how they've wanted more money. But yeah, that's the running back position for you. So that was the rushing yards, receiving yards. Tyreek Hill is the number one in the number one spot in receiving, has 1,300 yards receiving. Keenan Allen second, CeeDee Lamb in third, A.J. Brown 4, DJ Moore 5. Listen, we'll see if Tyreek Hill could get to 2,000 yards. Still got some time. He needs a 200-plus receiving yard game. And then I definitely, feel confident that he'll get to 2,000. But it's definitely going to be really close. But, as long as he, doesn't get hurt, I think he should get it. But again, it's going to be close. Then we go to sacks leaders. Danielle Hunter has 13.5 sacks, tied with T.J. Watt of the Steelers, who's got 13.5 sacks. You got Myles Garrett with 13, Khalil Mack with 13, and Josh Allen of the Jaguars. He's got 12. And then you go to interceptions. Deron Bland of the Cowboys has the most pick six now all time in a single season. I think it's right with 5, right? Yeah, he did it on Thanksgiving. Then you got Stone for the Ravens at 2. Adebo for the Saints, Jesse Bates, and Taylor Britt of the Bengals. They're all tied for 4 interceptions. And then with tackles, you got Roquan Smith at the top, Edwards of the Bears, and second, Zaire Franklin of the Colts, Aluakan of the Jaguars, and then C.J. Mosley of the Jets. Those are your tackling leaders. But yeah, those are all the T.J. Edwards of the Bears. So yeah, that's all the those are the stat leaders for the NFL. So now let's get into the college rankings. So you got some Heisman Trophy candidates. So you got Michael Penix of Washington. So he currently leads the way with 3,899 passing yards. Then you got Jaden Daniels of LSU, 3,812 passing yards. Caleb Williams of USC has 3,633 passing yards. Drake May, UNC, 3,608 passing yards. And then you got Shadou Sanders of, hopefully I pronounced that right, Deion Sanders, son of Colorado, 3,230 yards passing. So that's the passing yards category. Then you go to passer rating. You got Jaden Daniels, who's got a 208 passer rating. I mean, that's just insane when it comes to college. Then you got Bo Nix of Oregon, 189.8. Then of Liberty, Salder has a 179.2 passer rating. J.J. McCarthy of Michigan, 176.8. And then Pratt of Tulane has 164.9. Then for rushing yards, Ollie Gordon II has 1,579 rushing yards for Oklahoma State. Hampton for UNC has 1,442 rushing yards. Then for Toledo, Boone has 1,359 rushing yards. Penny Boone. Now I just clicked out of the stats. My bad. Then you go to the next for the Georgia State Panthers, Marcus Carroll. He's got, I keep clicking out of it now for some reason. He's got 1,350 rushing yards. And then for Troy, you got Vidal. He's got 1,350 yards as well. So those are your top five. Kimani Vidal for Troy, the Troy Trojans. So those are the rushing yards. Then we move on and we go to receiving yards. So you got Malik Napers for LSU. He's got 1,546 receiving yards. You got Washington for Virginia. He's got 1,426. Aduse, he's got 1,326. Lacey, not Eddie Lacy, he's got 1,316 receiving yards for the South Alabama Jaguars. So that's the top four at least. Then for FAU, you got Wester with 1,168 receiving yards. I cannot pronounce LeJonte Wester. I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, the pronunciations for some of these names, I'm just so bad at that. Then interceptions, you got Xavier Watts for Notre Dame. He's got 7. Holman for Wisconsin's got 6. Grant for Buffalo has 5. Green for Liberty, he's got 5. And for Kentucky, Hairston has 5. But yeah, those are all your stats leaders for college. And yeah, that's basically all the stat leaders for both college and for the NFL as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the show today. Obviously, tomorrow, week 13, kicks off between the Cowboys and the Seahawks. So, obviously we'll preview that. We'll have some other stuff to cover as well tomorrow. Look out for the shorts that'll come out later today throughout the day for both football and baseball. We're hoping that we get some more news with baseball. Obviously, we got the show on Friday, doubleheader on Friday. I'm also going to repost yesterday's show into the 4 parts, so that'll come out at some point today. So look out for that in case you missed anything from yesterday's show. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, make sure to tune in tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, of course. We'll be back. Like I said, we'll preview the game tomorrow night. But yeah, already halfway through the week already. Weeks are flying by. And they're never going to slow down. They're just going to keep going faster and faster. But yeah, so then again, and also I want to remind you guys, when it comes to comments, tip or donate, make sure to go to the following link as displayed on the bottom, streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. But yeah, that's it for me for today. So once again, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.